rare occurrence. This is Mojo, aka Fluffy Cat. That's alright, you make yourself comfortable, won't you? Yes. Make yourself comfortable in my computer chair. That's my computer chair where I spend quite a lot of my time during the day. I'm now banished to a dining room chair while I work on the computer. Thank you, Pussycat. He doesn't stay in during the day very often. When he does, he gets the rule of the house, basically. Cheeky monkey. And his brother, Elvis, who's been in several videos, has now got the sulks and gone outside. They are a funny pair of brothers. Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by to part 4. This is one where I'm going to cover my Masdevallias, my Ceologynes, both of which shouldn't grow very well in here, but they seem to hang on, and lastly my Prosthechias. Okay, let's get going. Right, today I'd like to have a go at my Masdevallias. I've been saying I'm going to do this for ages, and I hear you all gasping, that is not a Masdevallia. Well, you're right, but it is part of my Ceramis project because it was doing very poorly in the media it had, which had broken down, and it was a bit of a neglected plant. Now obviously that's Maxillaria and it's tenuifolia, but it's the yellow version. Now under normal circumstances that would probably be called Alba or Album, but it's just a yellow version of it. And if you know what tenuifolia looks like, if you replace the red with yellow, that's what it's going to look like. I don't really know what it actually looks like because it's never flowered. But look what neglect does. When you don't look at your plants for a bit, because they're in a strange place and they're in a large heavy tray that's full of water and very rarely gets moved, a bud's popped up. So soon we will see what this one actually looks like. I've been waiting for this for ages. It's growing well. Whether it's going to take to the Ceramis or not, I'm not sure, but it wasn't doing very well in the media it was in, so we'll see how it does with this. The rest of what's in here are Masdevallias that were doing badly. Now we've got two choices. Masdevallias should not be in here. So this tray should be nearly empty because they shouldn't exist. It's far too warm, and I'm getting away with it because of the high humidity. But a little bit of background with Masdevallias. Everybody says they're cool growing. Well, yes and no. Masdevallias are found basically south of Mexico in the various montane forests, hence cool, misty, high humidity, relatively low light levels. That's how they are portrayed. If you start looking into them in a bit more detail, do some digging on the internet and find a couple of good sites that sell them in that area, like Veitchiana and people like that, you actually find out that you can find Masdevallias down near sea level. Now I'm damned if it's cold down there, that would be classed as warm. That's not even intermediate, that's warm. So they're not all cool growing. And if you buy hybrids, well, I've got quite a few of those, you've got no idea of the parentage, so you don't know whether they come from 2,500 feet up a mountainside, living in a cloud forest all the time, or they come from deep down in the forests and the lush forests that are down near the coast. So there is a variety amongst them. If you did some digging and did some homework, you could find Masdevallias that would be happy in intermediate. I'm playing pot luck. I haven't done that work. But this is a hybrid that I got. I pre-ordered this at a last show because I love the flowers. It's Angel Frost. It's a beautiful flower. However, it's not a beautiful plant. This may be one that just doesn't like the heat. But it's in the Ceramis. It wasn't doing well. Maybe it will pick up. We shall see. This one on the end here, however, buried in amongst the tenuifolia leaves, is a pretty good looking plant. Lovely strong leaves, a bit muddled up with the one behind it. I'll turn it around in a minute. And this is just a hybrid. I just like the flowers. They were white with pink markings. Very, very attractive flowers and a reasonable size. So it was worth a try with the plant. Whether it's doing okay yet is difficult to tell. I mean, when you do a project like going into semi-hydroponics, these plants are actually standing in water down in the tray there. When you start a project like that, you don't know how it's going to go. You look at what others have done, and I've had a set of plants that just haven't done well. So what have I got to lose? Right, let me just turn the tray round. This is the other side of the tray. This is a strong grower. This, again, just a hybrid. Has orangey yellow, large flowers. I do like it. It's not having any at the moment, but then it hasn't long been dug out of its pot and stuck in there. But that's a pretty good plant. It's having a few setbacks as a consequence of repotting and being disturbed, like that new growth isn't going to make it. There you go, it's not going to make it. And it's got more new growth coming. It's a strong plant, it will pull through, I'm sure. This one, however, is a species. This is Ignea. One of the most stunning flowers you can get on a Masdevallia. However, this one does not like Roger's environment. This is the second one I've tried. One of them was that sort of size when I got it, and it deteriorated so fast, it just keeled over. It lasted about a month, so it didn't do well at all. I believe this is a genuine cool grower, and I'm never going to do well with it. The last plant I got, I split, and I took a couple of the what looked like reasonable growths off, and I thought I'll try them in the Ceramis. Now there are some new roots there, as you can see. Hopefully when they get down into that media, because it has a climbing tendency, this Masdevallia, it likes to creep. So it's one of those that will sort of push itself upwards, like some oncidiums do. The new growth comes up a bit higher each time, and it sort of tries to climb away from the pot. But that's not a happy plant. Maybe it'll do better in the Ceramis, but I think it's the temperature that's doing that one in. And you're absolutely right, that is also not a Masdevallia. If you remember my absolutely wonderful Cattleya that bloomed for the first time while I was away, it was a white colour, gigantic bloom with a very, very long trumpet lip that was marked with magenta. I'll put a pop up because it's my picture. Well, it had to come out of its pot. It fell, sorry, I split it. No, it fell apart. It was in an atrocious state under the media. But basically I rescued 3 good leads off of it with a few roots, down to no roots on one of those leads, and I potted those up separately into what hopefully will become a specimen plant if it gets its act together. And this was just a bit that was hanging off the end. Absolutely 0 roots, and I thought, we'll chuck it in there and see what it does. And see if that constant dampness without being soggy will just pull up a new growth. It has got a couple of eyes on it. We shall see. Anyway, let me get that tray out of the way and get the rest of the Masdevallias up. Okay, so the rest of the Masdevallias, these are the ones individually potted in more traditional medias. And as I said, in an intermediate house with the humidity level I've got, I'm getting away with these. Strictly speaking, this shelf should be empty. Masdevallias, intermediate, better cool, but some do well. This is one that does well. This is a hybrid, Snowbird. This has been to a couple of shows when it decides to get its act together. At the moment, it's chucking out nice new growths. Growths on Masdevallias equals leaves. No pseudobulbs, must not dry out under any circumstances. You dry a Masdevallia out, you will kill it. A constant moisture, evenly moist. And again, it's one of those difficult things to achieve, like Miltoniopsis, like Paphiopedilums. Constantly, evenly moist. Okay, that's why there's a reasonable amount of sphagnum in with the mix. It's easier to keep evenly moist with sphagnum. This is one of my better plants. That is a good Masdevallia. It's got a couple of black tips on some of the leaves. As you know, I've been pushing my feed levels. That's a sign of pushing it a bit too far, but it's only got a couple of leaves and the feed has been reduced accordingly. So that's Snowbird. Alright, so this one is coming on. This is Elizabeth Yansa, however you say it. It's a named hybrid. It's been a very, very slow plant to take off. I bought some plants at the Malvern show. It must be 2 years ago now, because it's coming up to the show soon in June, and it wasn't last year, it was the year before. I got them from Equigenera, which obviously coming from Ecuador, it's all in the name, you know, and over in England everything is bare rooted, and they pack the roots in sphagnum and often seal them in plastic bags. This is not a nice world for orchids sealed in a bag. They like fresh air more than probably anything else. They like fresh moving air if you can do it. So all three of those equigenera plants that I got, they were being sold off at the end of the show for £5, £6, £7, very cheap for Masdevallias, especially named hybrids and species. But they have taken a long time to catch, to actually show signs that they're pulling on. And this one is now showing those signs. We have got some healthy roots coming out, recently repotted, so it won't need disturbing again. A couple of strange white marks on this one, only on 2 leaves, I'm not worried. And this has wonderful flowers. Even though it hasn't been a healthy plant, it's still managed to push out flowers. So I like that one. This is another Ignea. It's a sad looking thing. I don't think Ignea is going to grow in my environment. That one's actually not mine, it's my daughter's. I'm trying to pull it on because I've got higher humidity, and she keeps her sort of orchids in a house, which is not ideal for Masdevallias. So that's not my plant. This one looks good from one side. This is veitchiana. It's a beautiful, big, bright orange flower. And it's one of those Masdevallia flowers that is covered in tiny little hairs, almost invisible, but the hairs are purple. So when the flower catches the light, it's got a purple sheen against the orange. It is stunning. Now that plant looks quite good from that side, but it's a lopsided plant. That's how it is, and I can see here are the new roots coming out the back, which is deliberately why I potted it this way, and this is where the new growth is going to come. That was a new growth, that was slug food. So this one's coming on, veitchiana. Very good plant when it flowers. And looking at the leaves, I think that's actually going to make it in my environment. Variety of leaves in Masdevallias, from pale green to deep green, to very flimsy oncidium-like, to quite sturdy, almost Cattleya-like. Those leaves are very, very stiff. This is empusa, so it's a species. It's doing okay. It's put out a couple of new shoots lately. It's not the most stunning of flowers, but it's growing well in my environment. So that probably comes from, you know, near the bottom of the mountain slopes. So it does get more heat in its natural environment. This one I've had a long time and it's done nothing. And it's still not doing much, although there are some new leaves coming, so maybe it's going to pull up. And that's a marbelis, and it's the red variety. Again, it's a species, but it's one of some Masdevallias are very variable in their colour form. So even though it's the same species, you can get quite a variety of colours. Some Cattleyas do that, and other types. And that's not a bad plant. This was one of the other equigenera plants, bare rooted. This is Orion, has a beautiful flower on it, if it ever does, and it has never ever pulled through. It may just be pulling through now. That's 3-4 new growths there, or new leaves. But it's not a happy plant. Again, that's probably because it comes from a cooler environment and not my environment. And the other two are over here because they're big. That's Snowbird. I'm sure I've just shown you that. I'll check, but if I haven't, this is a good plant. That does well. Yeah, I have just done that. A senior moment. Ooh, don't want too many of them. This is the only one that's in flower at the moment. It's got one flower up there. It's had flowers coming on it now, on and off for some time. No mass blooming, but a flower now and again will do. It's got another one coming there. It's not a bad plant. It's got new growths coming. It's quite a large plant. Not bad at all. And it seems to flower. So there we go. I love the flowers on Masdevallias. They're nicknamed kite orchids because of the sort of kite-like, and they vary considerably. Some of them have got long trumpets, and some of the tails are short. Some of them are absolutely huge and hang down miles from the flower. Some of the lower tails cross over. Some of them go out sideways and make a triangle. A variable flower, and a multitude of colours, from pure white, Snowbird, pure white, yeah, we've just done that one, up to the deepest reds and purples, through all the shades of yellows and oranges, and there's marked ones, there's plain ones, there's different shaped ones. So I like the genus, I like having Masdevallias around. But, as I said, this should be an empty shelf really. I shouldn't really be growing these intermediate, but some are doing okay, some not so good. Maybe they'll pull through, we shall see as the season goes on. Although it's probably coming up to the season they like the least. It's called the summer. And they'll probably have a bit of a slow down and a bit of a rest and struggle a bit for a couple of months, and then come September time, they'll probably like it more as the temperatures drop down a bit. Okay, Masdevallias. I'd recommend having a couple, whatever environment you've got, and if you grow a cooler environment, then get Masdevallias in. Very rewarding genus. I love them. This section is my Ceologynes. Again, like the Masdevallias, this really ought to be an empty shelf. Most of these are cool to cold growing. They really are not in the intermediate section, but again, some are. So I push my luck, I try them, I see how they do. Let's get rid of what I consider to be the rubbish. First ever two Ceologynes I got were tiny little offshoots brought into the Orchid Society, and I thought I'd try them. This one, practically everybody in our society's got this. This is cristata, and its variety Lemoniana. And that's named after the hybridizer, and it's got naffle to do with the colour or scent or anything. It's basically a cristata, and it was a named variety, so that's Lemoniana. It's coming on, but it's not exactly shining, is it? It's got 3 new bulbs on it this year, and hopefully it will gain some strength from those new bulbs and push some roots down and get going, which is what we want from all of our orchids. Move! Next, this is not cristata. This was originally orchracea, and it's now called nitida. It's a renamed one. Don't ask why, it's not worth getting stressed. But again, this was a tiny little offshoot that I got from the Orchid Society. I was told that it's got wonderful flowers and it's highly fragrant. So I thought we'll have some of that and we'll let that grow in the background and quietly do its own thing. That is a good new growth. I'm happy with that. Yeah. So coming on, as they say. You got the back there. This is a genuine, again, this was one of the first 2 Ceologynes I got. This is cristata. This is not a big plant, but it's got a new growth, and the bulb behind that new growth was the one that grew for me after I'd got the plant. So that sort of lead is extending away from the camera now. It is pushing on. Oh, there's another new growth there. I haven't spotted that one. So 2 new growths, 2 leads. And some dead old bulbs sitting in the background that haven't entirely shriveled. So again, lousy root system. When I got it, it had just been pulled off a mother plant and stuck in a pot probably the night before the show, the meeting. But we'll see what that does. I probably won't keep it, and there's a good reason for that, which I'll show you in a minute. This is on the bigger front of Ceologynes. I've been after this one for ages. This is Ceologyne Moriana, and I was after the Brockhurst version because it had been awarded, and this is Magnifica. This is a Burnham special, I believe. I saw this plant sitting there and I looked at the price and I ummed and I ahed, and I thought, what's the point in having a plant on your list for ages and then when you see one you walk away because of the price? You only live once. Get them while they're going. And basically it pushed up this new growth here, which is, you know, if you look at the old bulbs, they are a bit desiccated. I've got a feeling that's how they are, but The new one's a good fat plump bulb. It had trouble changing environments and it had some weird effects on the leaves, almost oncidium like. But nonetheless the leaves still did push up to their proper size. And then it's grown another new growth, or is in the process of growing another new growth, with not so much trouble with the leaves, not so much trouble at all. And there's strength in the back bulbs, they're keeping their leaves, they're nice bright green. But it's a beast of a plant, has to have a shelf almost to itself. Wonderful, wonderful flowers with the most stunning fragrance. I'm looking forward to experiencing that. I've got a feeling that it's going to do that late winter, early spring, and it will hopefully do it on both of these new growths. And in the meantime, later down in the year, possibly it might chuck out another 1 or 2 new growths which will be maturing. Okay, some hanging ones. We've got this one here. This is fimbriata. Lovely coloured flowers, unusual, more shades of like a fawny brown colour. There's a fragrance in there as well, but this is a plant that will try and escape your environment. They say when this one gets going it will grow up the wall if you give it half a chance. Well, I'm giving it half a chance by mounting it. There's 2 separate plants there obviously. This one has new growths on it near the top, 1, 2, 3, and this one's got one there at the base and another one there. So it's catching. That's my expression that I use when an orchid seems to take. Sits there doing nothing for a while and then it decides to have a go, and this one's in that process now. I'm hoping that will fill out, and I am hoping for flowers late winter, spring on that one. They're lovely flowers, they're not huge but they're really nice. This one, this is flacida. Again, wonderful flowers, and it's a creeping rhizome, but at least the gap between the bulbs is short. That's it. That's exactly how I bought it over a year ago. And it sits around doing absolutely nothing. It won't die and it won't grow. Now I've just watched a video that says give your plants a chance. They may take a year or 2. Well, this one's pushing its luck. I'm not a patient person. I don't like space being taken up by non-performers. But it obviously isn't dead. The leaves are the same colour as when I got it, with the same strange markings. I don't worry about that. Yeah, Ceologyne flaccida. Right, I'm going to have to clear the decks to get the last one up. Back soon. Okay, last couple now in this set. These are cristata, probably the Lemon Man version, but with no tag. The guy had forgotten which one was which, and he was throwing the plant away. It came into our plant auction, and basically I paid £8 for it. It was in a washing up bowl. No ventilation holes, no drainage holes. I'll get there in a minute. It was dripping wet. It was actually sat in water. It was in a hell of a state, but I could see some reasonable bits on it, so I thought for a couple of quid I'll have that and see what I can do with it. So I tore it apart, literally. I threw a load of it away because it was dead or dying or rotten. It was in a hell of a state, and I rescued bits. This is the weak bit. This is not doing very well. There's even a rotten pseudo bulb in there that's gone, but that was one piece. So potted it up sort of quite open in a basket. It's got room to expand if it chooses to do so. At the moment it's choosing to do nothing. This is piece number 2. This was a slightly better piece. It had better green on it. Nonetheless, it's still not doing much. I don't see those lovely spikes sticking out the side that constitute new bulbs. But it's not dead yet, and the bulbs on this one are pretty plump, and it's okay, I say, you know, but that's now 2 of the same plant. And then, like in Close Encounters of the Third Time, you see the silly little spacecraft whizzing around with their pretty colours, and then at the end the mothership arrives. This is the mothership. This is the big piece of the rubbish plant that I kept. If this catches and takes off, when it flowers, it's gonna be a showstopper. It's a hell of a plant. It's not showing huge signs of playing ball at the moment, but it's got green leaves, it's got a reasonable number of pseudobulbs. I mean, they go right down into the media. It was a beast of a plant when I got it. And again, I would love to see those spikes sticking out, which shows signs of new bulbs coming. I don't care where they come. They can come out the middle, down the sides. They can come out the sides of the basket for all I care, but do something. It should be good. It isn't yet, but I have high hopes for that. Again, that's a beast of a plant. It takes up half a shelf all on its own. But do I need 3 of the same thing? I've got the 2 smaller baskets I've just shown, and I've got this. They take up space, they're not small plants. So I'm probably going to take the bull by the horns and keep the mothership and get rid of the 2 little satellite ones with the pretty lights on. Okay, that's my Coelogynes. Prosthechias next. This is the one everybody's got. If they've got any, they've probably got this one. It's green hornet. It's renowned for being one of the easier ones to grow. You can have this in perpetual bloom if it's grown well. It just keeps coming. Mine's got a nice set of buds on that growth. That's a new growth. Size of the bulb, as good as, if not slightly better than previous. We like that. And another nice spike there coming on. These are starting to show shape now, so they will open soon. It's got lots of nicknames, this one. It's got octopus orchid, it's got shuttlecock orchid, but basically it is a certain shape of flower that I find incredibly attractive. It's got like dangly bits like octopus legs, and then it's got like a, I don't know, like a sort of parasol on its side, like a sort of shell shape above that can be incredibly well marked, and they can be highly fragrant. Okay, that's that one. Let's move that one out of the way and get to this one. This is unusual because this is a cross between green hornet and Miva étoile noire. Now, I wonder which country that comes from, if I've pronounced it right. That's a French hybridizer, if ever there was one. And the green hornet crossed with is an epi. Now, I don't know whether that's an Cattleya or an epidendrum. I must look that up sometime. But it does grow sort of Cattleya-like, looking at the bulbs. It's not the healthiest of plants at the moment. It was in a, as often is the case when you buy a plant, it was in a bit of a state when I got it. But it is doing things at the base of that bulb. There's some roots pushing out. The sheath that was inside blasted, that decided not to go anywhere. The growth that was new when I got it decided to distort itself and try and put another pseudobulb out on top of the pseudobulb it already had. So that was the change of environment, I suspect, and the change of media. But the flowers on that, which I haven't seen yet but I've seen pictures, are just like green hornet, except for the upside down bit, the sort of pointy upwards lip, is almost black. It is stunning, and I'm really looking forward to that one. So that's your 2 normal shaped Prosthechias. This one has flowered on and off quite well. It's a creeping one. This is garciana species, and as you can see, the rhizomes like to try and escape. We are not getting away, you're strapped down. But it puts out loads of new growth frequently. That grows on into pseudobulbs that have a sheath, and it has an unusual flowering habit that is a bit of a trait of some of the Prosthechias, in that it has a pair of flowers back to back. They literally point away from each other as though they can't stand the sight of each other. Now, this poor plant had the worst attack of scale you can imagine, and I missed it for a while. I just, it was in the winter time. I was surprised they were that active, but that's why all those spots and light colours are on the leaves. It was the scale attack. They have since been dealt with. Any that are still showing on there, I can assure you, are dead. They just haven't fallen off yet. But they got all over the pseudobulbs. They were all over the place. Okay, so put a picture up of that. It's an attractive flower and a good scent. And last but not least is radiata. This one has a little story. I was on one of my visits to Burnham Nurseries, walking around their orchid paradise, which is their sort of show place, and every 2 or 3 steps I got this waft of heavenly scent, and it took me a while to track it down. And when I did track it down, it was this plant, and they had a number of them dotted around, and they were filling the place with wonderful fragrance. And I thought, I've got to have one. So I went back and saw the lovely Sarah and said, I want one of these. And she said, well, you can't have one. So I said, why not? And she said, because they're all specimen plants and I haven't split one up lately. But I've had several people asking about them. So I suggested she might be brave and split up one of her specimen plants. Excuse the helicopter going over. You would choose now, wouldn't you? It's been one of those days. Noisy devils. Anyway, she decided to split a specimen plant, sent me an email that it was done, and I went back and I picked up this plant. Now this is a lot of pot for the size of the plant, but she said don't worry about that, they grow like mad. We have signs of growing like mad with its first new growth since I got it, but nonetheless it's putting up 2 flower spikes, one there and one there, and I am really looking forward to this. This is going to be a spectacle. Okay, so that's the end of that section.